Today's topic, bones and joints of the thorax. Overview. The bones of the thorax form the major part of the thoracic cage, and it provides support and protection to the internal organs such as heart and lungs that are present within the thoracic cavity. The bones of the thorax are sternum and the 12 pairs of ribs, first rib and the 12th rib, and the 12 thoracic vertebrae, first thoracic vertebrae and the 12 thoracic vertebrae. So let's discuss about the sternum part. Sternum bone, it is also known as breastbone. It is an elongated flat bone. It lies in the anterior median part of the chest wall. So this one is 7 centimeter long. So the sternum bone has 3 parts. The upper part, the manubrium sterni, it is also known as episternum. The middle part, the body, it is also known as mesosternum. The lower part, the xiphoid process, it is also known as metasternum. So the upper part of sternum is broad and thick, whereas its lower part is thin and it is pointed. So next, let's discuss about the manubrium sterni. So the manubrium sterni is quadrilateral in shape. So the word quadrilateral means it has 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 4 sides. So it lies opposite to the 3rd and 4th thoracic vertebrae. So the manubrium sterni lies opposite to, just assume it as a 3rd thoracic vertebrae, and this is the intervertebral disc, and this is the 4th thoracic vertebrae. So this manubrium sterni is the thickest and strongest part of sternum. It has 2 surfaces, anterior surface and behind posterior surface. It has 4 borders, superior, inferior and lateral, right and left sides. So an anterior surface provides attachment to 2 muscles. Let me show that for you. The anterior surface provides attachment to the first muscle, sternal head of sternocleidomastoid muscle, and pectoralis major muscle on either side. The posterior surface is smooth and it forms anterior boundary of the superior mediastinum. So this is the posterior surface of the manubrium sterni. It forms the anterior boundary of superior mediastinum. So on each side of the posterior surface, it provides attachment to 2 muscles. So the first muscle is sternohyoid, second muscle is sternothyroid muscle on each side. So the lower half of the manubrium sterni is related to arch of aorta. Here you can see this is the posterior surface and its lower half. It is related to arch of aorta, and upper half is related to 3 branches of arch of aorta. 1, 2, 3 branches. The first branch is the brachiocephalic artery, second one is the left common carotid artery, and third one is the left subclavian artery. So the upper border of the manubrium sterni is thick, rounded. It presents a notch called suprasternal notch, and it is also known as jugular notch. Show that. Here you can see a notch The word notch means a depressed area on the edge of a bone. So this suprasternal notch is it is located on the superior side of the sternum. So it is known as suprasternal notch. It is also known as jugular notch. So this suprasternal notch provides attachment to interclavicular ligament. What do you mean? What do you mean by the word ligament? It is a connective tissue that connects bones to other bones. So clavicular notch on either side of the suprasternal notch articulates with the clavicle. So this is the clavicular notch. Here comes the clavicle bone. Just assume it as a clavicle bone. So this forms the sternoclavicular joint. Sternum and clavicle. So sternoclavicular joint. Lateral border present two articular facets. Facet 1 and facet 2. So the word facet, it means a joint where two or more bones are joined. The joints in the spine are commonly called facet joints. So the other names for the facet joints are apophyseal joints, etc. So the upper facet, this one is the upper facet. It articulates with the first costal cartilage. Here is the first costal cartilage of the first rib bone to form a primary cartilaginous joint. The upper facet articulates with the first costal cartilage of the first rib bone to form primary cartilaginous joint. The lower demifacet, this one is the lower demifacet, along with the other demifacet in the body of sternum, this one articulates with the second costal cartilage. So lower border, so this lower border of the manubrium sterni articulates with the upper border of the upper body of the sternum to form a secondary cartilaginous joint called manubriosternal joint. Again I repeat, the lower border of the manubrium sterni articulates with the upper end of the body of sternum to form a joint called manubriosternal joint. This is secondary cartilaginous joint. The word cartilaginous joint, it means they are connected entirely by the cartilage. The joint between the manubrium and the sternum is an example of cartilaginous joint. So the manubrium sternal joint, it is also known as angle of Lewis or sternal angle. Let me spell the angle of Lewis. L-O-U-I-S, angle of Lewis. So now let's discuss about the sternal angle. The sternal angle can be felt as a transverse ridge on the sternum. So the sternal angle, this is the sternal angle. It can be felt as a transverse ridge. The word ridge, it means this is the transverse line. The ridge means the transverse line has something. It looks like a mountain. So this is ridge. So sternal angle can be felt as a transverse ridge on the sternum about 5 cm below the suprasternal notch. So the sternal angle is an important surface bony landmark for many anatomical events. First, the second costal cartilage articulates on either side with the sternum at this level. So at the sternal angle, second costal cartilage, as I have said before, second costal cartilage articulates at this level. So hence this level is used for counting the ribs. So the same level, it lies at the level of intervertebral disc between T4 and T5. just assume this as a intervertebral just assume this as a thoracic vertebrae T4, and this one is T5 vertebrae, and here is the intervertebral disc. So it lies at the level of sternal angle lies at the level of intervertebral disc between T4 and T5. Horizontal plane passing through this level separate the superior mediastinum from inferior mediastinum. So the horizontal plane passing through this level separates the superior mediastinum from inferior mediastinum. So ascending aorta ends at this level. So this one is the aorta. So this line is the sternal angle. So ascending aorta, arch of aorta, this is descending aorta. So ascending aorta ends at this level, and from this ending begins the arch of aorta, and arch of aorta ends at the same sternal angle. So from the ending of the arch of aorta begins the descending aorta. Next, trachea bifurcates into right and left principal bronchi. So the trachea divides into two principal bronchi at this level. So the sternal angle is here. You can see sternal angle, this one, the arch of aorta, here is the ascending aorta, and here starts the descending aorta. Here is the trachea, divides into two. So the pulmonary trunk also divides into right and left pulmonary arteries at the sternal angle. Let me show that for you. See, sternal angle, the pulmonary trunk divides into right pulmonary artery and left pulmonary artery, and also upper border of the heart lies at the sternal angle. Let's discuss of the body of sternum. It is also known as mesosternum. So the body of sternum is longer, narrower and thinner than the manubrium. It is broadest at its lower end. Its upper end articulates with the manubrium sterni. Its upper end articulates with the manubrium sterni at the sternal angle to form manubriosternal joint, and its lower end articulates with the xiphoid process. This lower end articulates with the xiphoid process to form xiphoidal joint. So the anterior surface of the body has three transverse ridges. So I have said before, this is a transverse line. The transverse line has something like this, looks like a mountain. Transverse ridge, this one. Three transverse ridge. The posterior surface of the body of sternum is smooth, and the lower part of the posterior surface of body of sternum gives origin to sternocostalis muscle. See, sternocostalis muscle. This is the body of sternum. The lower part of posterior surface gives origin to sternocostalis muscle. So the lateral border articulates with the second and seventh costal cartilage. This is the costal cartilage. Second, and this one is the seventh costal cartilage. The second costal cartilage articulates at the side of manubriosternal junction. Here, this is the sternal angle. It articulates at the side. This is the costal cartilage. And from the ending of the costal cartilage begins the rib bone. So Next, the seventh costal cartilage down, it oscillates at the Ziphisternal junction here, Ziphisternal junction. So the xiphoid process, let's discuss about the xiphoid process. It is also known as metasternum. So it is the lowest and smallest part of sternum. It varies greatly in size and shape. So its anterior surface provides insertion to the rectus abdominis muscle. So that here, its anterior surface provides insertion to the rectus abdominis muscles, and posterior surface give origin to the diaphragmatic fibers here. You need to memorize about the muscles attached on the anterior surface of the sternum and also the muscles attached on the posterior surface of the sternum. I will explain it again. Just an overview. The anterior surface of the sternum has three muscles. The first muscle is sternal head of sternocleidomastoid muscle. Second one is pectoralis major muscle. And third one is rectus abdominis muscle on the xiphoid process. This is the anterior surface of the sternum. The posterior surface of the sternum gives rise to sternohyoid muscle, sternothyroid muscle, and sternocostalis muscle, and diaphragm fibers, sternal fibers. So now let's discuss about the ribs. Ribs are flat, ribbon-like, elastic bony arches. This one is the arch. So they are like bony arches. So they extend from thoracic vertebra posteriorly. So you can see here the ribs extends from vertebra posteriorly to the lateral borders of sternum anteriorly. This is the lateral border of sternum anteriorly. So the anterior ends of the ribs are connected to costal cartilage. You can see the anterior ends are connected to the costal cartilage. The ribs along with the costal cartilage constitute the costa. C-O-S-T-A, costa. The ribs and their costal cartilages form greater part of the thoracic skeleton. Normally there are 12 pairs of ribs. The ribs are arranged one below the other, and the gaps between the adjacent ribs are called intercostal space. The length of the ribs increases from 1st to 7th and then gradually decrease. You can see the gradual decreases from 8th to 12th rib. Hence 7th rib is the longest rib. The transverse diameter of the thorax increases progressively from 1st to 8th rib. Hence 8th rib has the greatest lateral projection. The ribs are arranged obliquely. What do you mean by the word oblique? O-B-L-I-Q-E, oblique. It means something that is in a slanting position. The two lines are like this. We call it as the two lines are parallel to each other. The two lines are like this in a slanting position. We call it as an oblique angle. So in these ribs you can see that this is the anterior end, this is the posterior end. The anterior end lies at the lower level and the posterior end lies at a higher level than the anterior end. So the obliquity of the ribs increases progressively from 1st to 9th rib. So hence 9th rib is the most obliquely placed. So next, the anterior ends of first 7 ribs are connected to sternum through their costal cartilages. It's the lateral border of the sternum through their costal cartilages. The cartilage anterior ends of 8th, 9th and 10th ribs are connected to the next higher cartilage. What is the next higher cartilage? The 7th cartilage. The anterior ends of 11th and 12th ribs are free and therefore called floating ribs. 11th and 12th are called floating ribs. Just try to remember, 7th rib is the longest rib, 8th rib has the greatest lateral projection, 9th rib is most obliquely placed, and 11th and 12th ribs are known as floating ribs. So let's discuss about the classification of ribs. Ribs are classified according to their features and according to the relation with the sternum and their articulation. So according to the feature, ribs are classified into typical ribs and atypical ribs. So what do you mean by the word typical? It has a unique feature, like for example, Jackie Chan has the typical talent to act in that Oscar film. So like that. So atypical is just opposite of the typical. So what are all the typical ribs? 3rd to 9th ribs are typical ribs, and atypical ribs are 1st rib, 2nd rib, and 10th, 11th and 12th ribs are atypical ribs. So according to the relation with the sternum, the ribs are classified into true ribs and false ribs. So why they are called true ribs and false ribs? True ribs, they articulate the first rib to 7th ribs are known as true ribs, upper 7 ribs. The lower 5 ribs are known as false ribs. The first 1 to 7 ribs articulate with the sternum anteriorly, whereas the false ribs, they do not articulate with the sternum. Instead, they articulate with the costal cartilage of the upper level of the 7th costal cartilage. So they are known as true and false ribs. So according to the articulation, the ribs are classified into vertebrosternal ribs, vertebrochondral ribs, and vertebral ribs. The word itself has the meaning vertebrosternal ribs. The ribs are connected with the vertebral bone and the sternum bone. The first 7 ribs, they are connected posteriorly to the vertebral bones and anterior to the lateral border of the sternum. So next, vertebrochondral. So vertebrochondral, the word itself has the meaning the ribs are attached to vertebral bone, and chondra means it is related to cartilage. So the ribs are attached to the cartilage. So what are all the ribs? 8th to 10th ribs are vertebrochondral ribs. Here you can see 8th rib, 9th rib, 10th rib. They are attached posteriorly to the vertebral bone, and anteriorly you can see they are attached to the costal cartilages. So next, vertebral ribs. They are also known as floating ribs. 11th and 12th ribs are known as vertebral ribs because these two ribs, they articulate only with the vertebral body. The anterior ends, they do not articulate with anything, so they are known as floating ribs. So let's discuss about the typical ribs. Each rib has 3 parts: anterior end and posterior end, and the shaft. It is also known as body. The posterior end consists of head, neck, and tubercle. The shaft is the longest part, and it extends from anterior end towards the posterior end. So it has 2 surfaces, inner surface and outer surface, upper border and lower border. So the body also bears a costal groove. Here you can see the costal groove. So this costal groove, what do you mean by the word groove? It is a naturally occurring long depression area on the bone. So the costal groove, it guides the costal nerves and vessels to pass through. So the head has 2 articular surfaces. 1, 2. They are divided into 2 parts by a ridge. So the head articulates with the intervertebral disc. You can see this is the intervertebral disc. Above located the vertebral bodies. So they articulate with the intervertebral disc and edge of the adjacent ribs. Adjacent vertebral bodies. So neck is 2 centimeter in length. It is just located lateral to the head, and the tubercle is a tiny projection. A tubercle is located at the junction of the neck and the junction of the body. The whole is the body. It is located at the junction of the neck and the body, and the tubercle has the articular facet for transverse process of vertebra. This one is the intervertebral disc. It articulates with intervertebral disc and the vertebral body's adjacent area. So its transverse process articulates. The vertebral body transverse process articulates with this articular facet of the tubercle. Each one has like this. 5 centimeters away from the tubercle, so you can see the direction is changed. It's curved. So this area is known as angle of the ribs. The straight line suddenly it changes into curved one. So this area is known as angle of the ribs. The 3 characteristic features of a typical rib. The ribs are curved to its entire extent. So you can see the ribs are curved to its entire extent, and it is angulated. What do you mean by the word angulated? It presents 2 bends, one 5 centimeter in front of the tubercle and 2 centimeter from the anterior end. You can appreciate it here. 2 centimeter from the anterior end, it bears a bend, and 5 centimeter it bears a bend. So next, it is twisted so that the 2 ends of the ribs cannot touch the same horizontal plane. What do you mean by the word twisted? The ribs located like this. So next rib located like this. Next rib located like this. It's in the twisted form. So the ribs are in twisted. So the mnemonic for that is CAT. C-A-T. Here, C stands for curve, A stands for angle, T for twist. So this is the most important 3 characteristic feature of a typical rib. So now let's discuss about the general characteristic of a atypical ribs. Let's take the first rib as an example. So the first rib has the greatest curvature and it is shortest. So the head has a single articular facet for the T1 vertebral body, and the tubercle is thick and prominent. You can see the tubercle is very thick and prominent here. You can see, appreciate it here. Tubercle is very thick and prominent, while the head consists of 2 articular facets in a typical rib. I mean the 6th rib. We discussed it before for attachment for the intervertebral disc and the adjacent vertebral bodies. And here you can see the tubercle is very smooth and it is not that prominent. This one is the typical ribs. So this is the atypical rib, first rib. So there is no angle of ribs in atypical rib, but there is angle of rib in the typical ribs. So upper surface of the first rib has 2 grooves, 2 shallow grooves for the subclavian artery and vein, but there is no costal grooves like in the typical rib. So the 2 shallow grooves are separated by a scalene tubercle for the attachment of scalene muscles. So the second rib is longer than the first rib. There is no picture here, but just try to understand what I am saying. The second rib is thin, long, and it has a tuberosity on its superior surface for the attachment of serratus anterior muscle. The 10th rib has only 1 articular facet, just like the first rib. It has only 1 articular facet for the articulation with the vertebral column, vertebral bone. The 11th and the 12th ribs also have only 1 articular facet, but they have no neck. They have only 1 articular facet for the articulation with the vertebral column. Let's discuss about the thoracic vertebra. There are 12 thoracic vertebra. They are identified by the presence of costal facet on the side of the bodies. Here, this is the costal facet. This one is the superior costal facet. So why this costal facet has the name transverse and why this costal facet has the name superior? Because this one located on the transverse line of the body. So this facet is known as costal facet of transverse process, and this is located on the superior side of the vertebral body. So these articular facets on the side of their bodies are one of the most important feature of the thoracic vertebra, because they are not found in cervical, lumbar and sacral vertebra. So if someone asks you how do you know that this particular bone is thoracic vertebra, you need to answer immediately by saying the thoracic vertebra has articular facets on the side of their body, but the cervical, lumbar and sacral, they lack these features. This feature is not found in their bones. So next, the body of the upper thoracic vertebra, that means T1. Body of the upper thoracic vertebra, T1, is gradually changed from cervical to thoracic type. So because C7 vertebra and T1, they are located adjacent to each other, so they look very similar. So the same goes for the T12 and lumbar 1. They are located adjacent to each other, so they look similar. So now let's discuss about the classification of the thoracic vertebra. The vertebra is classified into typical and atypical vertebra. So what are the typical vertebra? 2nd to 8th vertebra are typical vertebra, and atypical vertebra are 1st, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th are atypical vertebra. So let's discuss about the typical thoracic vertebra. So the characteristic features of the typical thoracic vertebra are presence of articular facets on each side of the body. As you can see, this is the articular facet, superior articular facet. As I have said before, superior, it is located on the superior side of the body. So superior articular facet, and this one transverse costal facet located on the transverse line of the body. So transverse, so this one and this one articulate with the ribs. Next, body is heart shaped. So you can see the body is heart shaped. Its transverse and anterior posterior measurements are almost equal. Vertebral foramen is circular. The vertebral foramen constitute the spinal cord. So the spinous process is long. This one is the spinous process. You can see spinous process. It is directed downwards. So pedicle is attached to the upper part of the body. Here, this one. This is the pedicle. So this is the facets. And the inferior vertebral notch is very deep. Here you can see this is the notch. Inferior vertebral notch is very deeper. Let me show that in a 3D animation. Here you can see the 12 thoracic vertebra from thoracic 1 to thoracic 12. So the typical thoracic vertebra are 2nd to 8th rib. 2nd to 8th rib are typical thoracic vertebra. So let me zoom in the third thoracic vertebra. This one is the third thoracic vertebra. So you can clearly see the articular facets. This is the transverse articular facet. This is the superior articular facet on the body. So this one here is the pedicle. Next, this is the spinous process going downwards. This is the vertebral body. So this blue one is the intervertebral disc. So now let's discuss about the atypical thoracic vertebra. So what are the atypical thoracic vertebra? Here T1, T1, T9, T10, T11 and T12. So T1 resembles 7th cervical vertebra. As I have said, C7 and T1. So they both look similar. Same goes for the T12 and lumbar 1. They both look similar. The body looks similar. So the T1 vertebra resembles 7th cervical vertebra. Their superior costal facet is circular. You can see their superior costal facet on the side of the body is circular in shape. So superior vertebral notch, the vertebral body notch, this is the superior vertebral notch is deep and it can be clearly seen. So next one is T9. T9, presence of only superior demifacet. This T1 has circular facet, this one has demifacet, half circle. So the T10, presence of only single large complete costal facet or oval shaped facet. Each vertebra has different features. So the T11, presence of single large circular costal facet, but you can notice that the transverse process here is absent. In T1 there is a transverse process, T9 also transverse process cost articular facet, here also there, but in T11 the transverse process is absent. T12, as I said before, it resembles L1 lumbar vertebra. So here the presence of single large circular facet extending onto the root of the tubercle. Here you can see the transverse process has 3 tubercles: superior, inferior and lateral is located here. Let me show that in a 3D animation. Here you can see the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So here is the tubercle, superior, inferior and the small one tubercle. Here you can see the 11th one has no facet. The facet is supposed to be here, but it has no facet, transverse facet. So the 10th one has only complete circular costal facet, and the 9th one also has demifacet, half circle. So let's discuss about the costal cartilages. The costal cartilages are made up of hyaline cartilage and are mainly responsible for providing elasticity and mobility of the chest wall. The first 7 costal cartilages, they are connected to the lateral border of the sternum with the corresponding ribs. 8th, 9th and 10th cartilages, 8th, 9th and 10th cartilages at their anterior ends are connected with the lower border of the cartilage above. That means the 7th rib cartilage. So there is a gradual decrease in length. Here you can see a gradual decrease in length, but here you can see from 1 to 7 there is a gradual increase in length and decrease in length. So 11th and 12th cartilages ends are free and pointed extremities. Here you can see this is the 11th one and 12th one is hiding here. So their ends, anterior ends are pointed towards the extremities. So let's discuss about the joints of the thorax. There are 6 thoracic joints: costovertebral, costotransverse, costochondral, interchondral and mandibulosternal and intervertebral. Let's discuss about costovertebral joints. These joints are formed by the articulation of articular facets. This one is the rib. This one is the posterior end of the rib. The posterior end has head, neck and tubercle. So the head contains 2 articular facets, and the vertebral body, this is the vertebral body, it contains 2 costal facets. This is superior costal facet and transverse process of costal facet. So these joints are formed by articulation of articular facets on the head of the ribs and superior costal facet and transverse costal facet on the body of the thoracic vertebra. So what is the type of joint here? Synovial type of plane joint. So there are 3 ligaments present in the costovertebral joint. So what are the ligaments? Capsular ligament or joint capsule. You can see the joint capsule here. And interarticular ligament. It is located in the middle of the articular process, interarticular ligament. And radiate ligament or triradiate ligament. This one is the ligament, radiate or triradiate ligament. So now let's discuss about the costotransverse joints. So the tubercle of the ribs here, the tubercle of the rib articulate with the transverse process of the vertebra, to form a synovial joint. Here you can see this is the rib bone. Posterior end contains head, neck and tubercle. They articulate with the tubercle particularly articulates with the transverse process here to form a synovial joint. So the type of joint here is plain type of synovial joint. There are 4 ligaments present in the costotransverse joints. See, superior costotransverse ligament here. Superior costo near the superior articular process, and intertransverse or inferior costotransverse ligaments and lateral costotransverse ligament. Let's discuss about costochondral joints. Costochondral joints are primary cartilaginous joints. They are located between the anterior end of the rib and its cartilage. So this one is the costochondral joint. Next, chondrosternal joint. The word itself has the meaning. Chondro means it related to a cartilage and sterna, sternum bone. So the joints between the medial ends of 1st to 7th costal cartilages and lateral border of the sternum. So they are often known as sternocostal joints. The first chondrosternal joint is primary cartilaginous joint. The first chondrosternal joint is primary cartilaginous joint. They do not permit any movement. Same, the costochondral joints also, they do not permit no movement. First 1 to 7th. So next, interchondral joints. So interchondral joints, the cartilages are connected with another cartilage. So interchondral, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th costal cartilages here. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th costal cartilages comes into contact with one another and articulate with each other by a number of small synovial joints here. So the union between 9th and 10th costal cartilage is usually ligamentous. The union between 9th and 10th costal cartilage is usually ligamentous. Not like here, they are synovial joints. So next one is manubriosternal joint. The word itself has the meaning manubrium sternum. The manubriosternal joint is between the lower end of the manubrium and upper body of the sternum. So this one is the second cartilaginous joint between manubrium and body of sternum. It permits slight sliding movement of body of sternum on the manubrium during respiration. Again, I repeat, the primary cartilaginous joint is located on the chondrosternal joints. First, chondrosternal here, primary cartilaginous joint. It permits no movement at all. But the second cartilaginous joint, it is located here between the manubrium sterni and the upper border of the body of sternum. But it permits slight sliding movements of during respiration. So next, intervertebral joints. Intervertebral means the vertebral is connected to another vertebral. The intervertebral joints are formed between the bodies of the vertebra. For example, the joints here, they are formed between the joints of the vertebra and between the articular process of the vertebra. So articulation happening here below each other.